Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time, on the edge of a deep forest, there lived a brother and sister named Hansel and Gretel. They lived in a small wooden cottage with their father and stepmother. Hansel was the older brother. He was clever, calm, and always tried to protect his little sister. Gretel was gentle and bright, with a warm heart and a brave spirit. Even though she was still very young, the family was poor. Their father worked as a woodcutter, but times had become difficult. There was little food in the house, and each day seemed harder than the last. Even so, Hansel and Gretel stayed close. They shared everything: meals, stories, and quiet moments beneath the stars outside their cottage. No matter how difficult life became, they always had each other. One cold evening, after the children had gone to bed, their stepmother spoke to their father in a worried voice. "There is barely enough food for tomorrow," she said. "If things continue like this, none of us will survive." Their father lowered his head. "They are only children," he said softly. "I know," said the stepmother, "but we cannot feed everyone." Hansel and Gretel were not asleep. They heard every word. Gretel began to cry quietly. Hansel gently held her hand. "Don't be afraid," he whispered. "I'll think of something." Late that night, when the moon shone bright, Hansel slipped outside. He picked up small white pebbles that glittered in the moonlight and filled his pockets. Then he returned to bed. The next morning, their stepmother woke them early. "We are going into the forest to gather wood," she said. Hansel understood immediately, but he stayed calm. As they walked deeper into the forest, Hansel quietly dropped the white pebbles one by one along the path. The pebbles shone softly whenever sunlight touched them. At last they reached a clearing. Their father's face was full of sadness. "Wait here," he told them. "We'll return soon." Then he and the stepmother walked away. Gretel watched until they disappeared. Hours passed. The forest grew quiet. As evening fell, Gretel's voice trembled. "Hansel, what if they don't come back?" Hansel squeezed her hand. "They will not," he said gently. "But don't worry, I know the way home." When night came and the moon rose high, the white pebbles sparkled like tiny stars on the forest floor. Hansel followed them. Step by step, he led Gretel home. By morning they reached the cottage. Their father ran to them with tears in his eyes. He hugged them tightly. But their stepmother was unhappy. Days passed. Food became even scarcer. Once again, the stepmother insisted the children must be left in the forest. This time, Hansel tried to collect pebbles again, but the door had been locked. He could not go outside. The next morning, all he had was a small piece of bread. As they walked into the forest, Hansel broke the bread into tiny crumbs and dropped them behind them. Surely, he thought, they could follow the trail back. Again, their father left them in the woods. Again, the forest grew quiet. When night came, Hansel searched for the trail, but there was nothing. The birds had eaten every crumb. Gretel's eyes filled with tears. Hansel felt fear for the first time, but he forced himself to stay strong. "We'll keep walking," he said. "We'll find help." So they walked through tall trees, over roots and stones, past streams and moss-covered rocks. They walked all day, then another. They grew hungry and tired. Just when they felt they could go no farther, Gretel stopped. "Hansel, look!" Ahead, through the trees, stood the strangest house they had ever seen. Its roof looked like cake. Its windows sparkled like sugar. The walls smelled of warm cookies and sweet bread. It was a house made of sweets. Hansel stared in amazement. "Is it real?" Gretel stepped closer. She broke off a tiny piece of the wall. It tasted like gingerbread. "It's real," she whispered. The children were starving. They carefully nibbled pieces of the house. A sweet voice suddenly called from inside. "Who is nibbling at my house?" The door slowly opened. An old woman stepped out. She had silver hair, a curved back, and a warm smile. "Oh, my poor children," she said kindly. "You look exhausted." Hansel and Gretel froze, but the woman's voice sounded gentle. "Come inside," she said. "I have warm soup and soft beds." The smell of fresh food drifted from the house. The children looked at each other. They were tired, hungry, and desperate. So they followed her inside. At first, everything seemed wonderful. The old woman fed them warm soup, bread, and sweet milk. She gave them soft blankets and warm beds. For the first time in days, they felt safe. But by morning, everything changed. The old woman's sweet smile disappeared. Her eyes became sharp and cold. She straightened her back. She was no harmless old woman. She was a witch. And she had lured children into her candy house for one reason only, to keep them there forever. She locked Hansel inside a wooden cage. Gretel cried out in fear. "Let him go," the witch pointed at her. "You," she snapped. "You will cook and clean." Day after day, Gretel worked while the witch fed Hansel large meals. The witch wanted him stronger and healthier. Hansel quickly realized the witch could not see very well. Whenever she demanded, "Show me your finger," Hansel held out a thin little bone he had found. The witch touched it and frowned. "Still too thin," she muttered. Days passed, then weeks. At last, the witch grew impatient. "Enough!" she shouted one morning. "Today I will cook him whether he is thin or fat." Gretel's heart pounded. The witch dragged her toward the oven. "Check if the oven is hot enough," the witch ordered. Gretel looked at the oven, then back at the witch. She pretended confusion. "I don't understand," she said softly. "How do I check?" The witch groaned in frustration. "You foolish child." She stomped forward. "Like this." She leaned toward the oven. That was the moment. Gretel gathered all her courage. She pushed. Hard, the witch stumbled forward. Before she could react, Gretel slammed the oven door shut. The witch was trapped. Silence filled the room. Gretel stood frozen, breathing hard. Then she ran to Hansel. "Hansel!" She unlocked the cage. Hansel rushed out and hugged her tightly. "You did it," he whispered. Gretel trembled. "I was so scared." "I know," Hansel said, "but you were brave." Together, they searched the house. Inside, they found chests filled with jewels, gold coins, and precious stones the witch had hidden for years. Hansel stared. "We should take these." Gretel nodded. They filled their pockets. Then they ran, out of the candy house, through the forest. Away from the witch forever. They walked for what felt like hours. At last they reached a wide river. "How do we cross?" Gretel asked. Just then, a white swan glided toward them. Hansel smiled. The swan helped carry them safely across. Once on the other side, something felt familiar. The trees, the path, the sound of the wind. Hansel's eyes widened. "We're close." They ran, faster and faster. Then there it was, their cottage, their home. Their father stood outside. When he saw them, he dropped everything and ran. "Hansel! Gretel!" He pulled them into his arms. Tears streamed down his face. "I searched everywhere. I never stopped hoping." The children held him tightly. They were home. Their father told them the stepmother was gone, and he had regretted letting them go every single day. Hansel and Gretel forgave him. They were together again. And that mattered most. Then Hansel and Gretel poured the jewels and gold onto the table. Their father stared in shock. "With this," Hansel said, smiling, "we'll never go hungry again." At last, their difficult days were over. They repaired the cottage. They filled the pantry with food. They laughed together again. But the greatest treasure Hansel and Gretel brought home was not gold, it was courage. Hansel had protected his sister with his clever mind, Gretel had saved them both with her bravery. Together, they survived darkness and found their way home. And from then on, no matter what challenges came, they knew one thing for certain. As long as they stayed together, they could face anything. The end.